Here we go. Hi, Rick DiClemente here with Astrology Unplugged. Tonight's a very special edition. I want to bring you up to date on a couple of things quickly. I apologize if your emails went out and you didn't have the link to this, but that's all being fixed because my whole website's now on a different server. We're ironing out the bugs. Next week will be a repeat of a session I did about a month ago, and it did not record through technical issues. And that's why I'm doing it again, because I want it to be permanently on YouTube. That's where I'm talking about the 10 major planetary transits that gave us 2019 and 2020. And it won't hurt anybody to go through it twice. It's painting the background of how we got here and what's happening in the near future. So I'll be redoing that. And then for all you people who have wished to have an online course, and there are free online astrology courses out there. I can't speak of them. I don't know much about the people, but I am done teaching. I taught for 32 years, and I'm going to do it one more time. I'm being guided to finish and do one more class. So I will be giving, after next week on January 23rd, I will be giving 10 weeks in a row, 9, 10, 11, whatever it takes. 10 weeks in a row, a course, a beginner's course in astrology. The stars, not the stars. Astrology is not about the stars. It's about the planets. Planets, the signs, aspects, translations. And after 10 weeks, you have a pretty good understanding. You won't be an astrologer, but you'll at least have a better, strong foundation for yourself. Now, we rewind now to 3.5 years ago when I was first starting Astrology Unplugged. My first guest was Lee Ann Lee Ann Fortunato-Heltzel, who's with us again tonight. Welcome.
Thanks, Rick. It's great to be here. I can't believe that was already 3.5 years ago.
3.5 years ago, you'll remember she was on with her two lady friends, and they were talking about Dominher, which is the society in northern Italy, a model society. And she was one of the three musketeers that night. Lee Ann is with us tonight. We've known each other about 10, 15 years. Lee Ann's coming to you from Pittsburgh. She works a lot out of Ohio also. And Lee Ann is working with, her website is Creative One?
CreativeOneMarketing.com.
CreativeOneMarketing.com. And I have been talking to them about you telling us about the work you're doing with the quantum field. So I'm going to let you go and apologize again to anybody who's having difficulty getting on. But you YouTubers who are watching, if you ever want to join us 8 o'clock on a Thursday night, just go to Astrology Unplugged. Put that in Google, it'll take you right there. Lee Ann, tell us what you're up to. I know you're working with clients in this immersion technique. Would you explain to us what you're doing?
Yes, actually, thank you very much for having me and for asking me to just explore this with everybody that's on the call and listening later on. The immersive meta process is a process that has been evolving, I would say, really for like the last 6 or 7 years. I'm going to back up a little bit to kind of let you know how I got to this point that I'm at right now. Is for many decades, I guess I would say I was kind of born with the ability to help and assist crossing people over that weren't fully crossed over, and didn't really enjoy that work, but it was a gift that I had. And so I was given some really wise advice a number of years ago that said, just honor what your gifts are so that more gifts could develop from that. And I took that advice and decided to own it. And at the same time, I have owned a marketing firm for, almost 10 years. And I've always been in the marketing field. I'm an artist by trade, a graphic designer and an art director. And I've had a marketing firm for 10 years. And early on within that process, I got to the point that I made the realization that I didn't I didn't really want to play in the same realm as everyone was playing in. I had this really rich spiritual life and focus that I really have put on human potential and understanding higher consciousness. And then I had my work life and made the conscious choice to merge those two, not really knowing what that would mean, but just knowing that I needed to show up in my fullness in my business. And as soon as that happened, what developed from there is what myself and my partner Gina Mazza called the signature meta process, which was basically the ability to step into higher consciousness on behalf of our clients. And when we first started doing it, we weren't telling our clients, we were, just rolling out marketing plans like we always did, but we were going into that higher space on behalf of the client and just getting information, understanding that that's where I was tapping in all along throughout my whole career. When I did anything creative, I would always say I was reaching into, this field of creativity, and I realized I was reaching into higher consciousness. So I knew there was more. I knew there was more to just talk to a client and then go in. It's almost like a reading and kind of regurgitate it back to the client. I knew that there was more around that, and actually went through a process where I made the choice to get rid of everything I owned and just get on the road and just live in surrender to life and see where life would take me, and see where that expansion, how that would open up within my life. And that was how the immersive process was born, more or less. I immediately understood that I could take my clients. So rather than a client coming to me and saying, I need this branding done, or I need to know how to better communicate who I am in the world, rather than me just going into that higher space and sharing that information with them, I was able to and am able to bring them into that higher space with me. And that has unfolded into just a really, really fascinating journey. So it entails being together for a few days and going in, I call them trips in to this higher consciousness space. And the only thing I really require of my clients, whether it's one person or a group of people, is to just have an open mind and be comfortable with meditation. So we take several trips in, and we can actually go into that higher space together and experience the highest vision for their company or for the individual. It works for an individual just as well as it does for a company. So that's it in a nutshell. And I know that sounds pretty obscure, so I can maybe give you some examples of how that plays out. Um, an example is one client we had was getting ready to make a very big shift in the way that they were running their business. So we were able to go into what I call the meta space and actually engage with the people that they would be interacting with in the future. So the future individuals that they would be interacting with, we were able to talk to them, and the client was able to talk to them. So this graphic that you've shared with us is the best way that I can graphically depict what happens in the way that I see it. Is, there's what we consider, there's lots of words for this, heaven, the quantum field, entelechy, are all words for that higher space. And then there's the day-to-day, how we just function through our day, making decisions. I always say that, when a group of people start a company, it's really just a collection of souls. And those souls come together, and just like each person has a soul, a company also, because it was started by a collection of souls, has its own higher connected space as well. And it could be doing good in the world, it could be doing bad in the world. So from that space, we can actually go and experience whatever it is we need to experience. The future, if there's individuals that they're contemplating hiring, or any aspect. How I look at it always, of course, from the marketing perspective. So what's the best message that we need to create in order to connect to the exact people, the exact individuals that are looking for that business? I call it, it's like energetic SEO. SEO with websites, anything online, draws the right people to that website. And from this perspective, it's everything we do resonates and is attracting in the right individuals for that company. So that, I call that the creation point, that higher space of a company that we can step into and experience.
It's amazing if you look at the phenomenal Uranus-Pluto conjunction of 65. That's what drew the Beatles together, because it was forming since 1960. And the other groups have tried. You just can't do it. You're just not going to have another Beatles. You're just not. In astrology, you could put 4 people together. My software, you can put up to 10. It's really interesting because you could see a group, and you could do a group of, like, say, 6 people, and you could remove one. You would see how the group changes. Then put that person back in, remove this person. You would see how the group changes. And you might not want to give them the translation in front of everybody because it can be pretty sensitive. But anyhow, what interested me about what you were saying is you were talking about 10 years ago, 9 years ago. And look, it's almost 7 years and 1 month now since December of 2012 when they talked about the shift. And I thought there's a lot of talk about the shift. Here's a Capricorn trying to understand. Yeah, the shift. Well, I found out later there was a shift going on, and it has been going on. And I don't want to get into now about the quantum field, but we noticed a really huge shift in 2011, and you're seeing it in everything now. We knew it was going to become a household word. It's shifting everywhere. People are understanding it, with a little help from the Matrix, I'm sure. But let's say, Lee Ann, let's say, for instance, I'm in the process of writing a second book, okay? And let's say I'm kind of vague in the beginning. I got some kind of general ideas, and you would take me there, explain to me how you do it. And I've got your 2 pictures here. Whenever you want them, just let me know that are examples of what your client drew. So what would you do for me if I'm saying, Lee Ann, help me, I got a vision of a new book?
Yeah, so the first thing we would do, again, it's a couple day process, and we take a couple of these trips in, and each trip in has its own flavor. I don't know what's going to occur until we start the process, because it's tailored. It's exactly what that person's higher self is needing at that time. But there's some commonalities that always happen. There'll be a part of the process where I actually bring that person into that higher state of consciousness so that they can meet and step into their higher self. So to experience themselves in that fully realized state where they're totally complete, they've totally evolved, and every aspect of them is full. And so to have the experience of stepping into yourself on that higher level, you see the world and you see yourself in a completely different way, because in that higher space, there isn't any fear. Fear doesn't exist. And the ego actually it's still there, but it serves a different purpose. So so everybody has a different experience when that happens. But it's always a very beautiful and empowering experience. And then to go in and, wherever the journey kind of leads us to a space that's empowering for you to see that book from its highest perspective. Because so often we're not aware of how capable we are, the capacities that we have, the talents that we have. We're really not aware of how amazing we are as human beings. We only use 10% of our brain. And I believe that this process is going into and utilizing our mind in a new way. I believe that as we're evolving as human beings, that's a fact. We've got that scientific proof around us that we're evolving as we have been doing. But as we evolve, we have new capacities and we can use different parts of our brain. And so that to me, that's what this is. And so to be able to go into a space, an experience of yourself, so it's not anything foreign from you, it's you stepping into a higher version of you, then you can see your power and feel it and see your highest potential. So if it's an individual or if it's a company, it's the same thing, just to change that perspective, because everything is perspective in life, right? I mean, it's just the way we perceive our surroundings. So it's not only going into that space and having that experience, but it's learning how to go in there for yourself. So it's not like okay, we've done this experience, great, that it's gone. It's a tool to be used.
Now, for example, what kind of experience would I have? I mean, I know now that this book, which is 9 years old, has an entity unto itself. Is this what you're talking about when people feel they have a calling? Something's calling them? It's that center that's calling them?
Yeah, I believe that everybody comes to this earth and incarnates with the mission. And I believe that we have this mission to do whatever we're here to do, that we agreed to do in this experience. And then we also have that yearning,
We're getting blocked.
to turn by state. And sorry?
I'm getting a little bit of static here for a second. Repeat what you last said, please.
Yeah. So I believe we each come in with a mission, and we have that, whether we're really conscious of it or not, we have this internal drive or yearning, to accomplish what we're here to do.
What do you do with people? Because I get them all the time. They're so frustrated if they can't find that. I mean, they'll do anything to find that, and they can be tearful, really worked up about not being able to when they see other people around them who seem to be. What do you deal with a client that their heart is screaming so loudly?
Yeah, it's amazing when that person gets into that higher space and steps into their higher self, everything shifts.
How does it shift?
Like it depends on the individual.
I mean, an example.
Like an individual I was just with recently, he just completely, it felt like he just broke completely wide open, and just he just like completely evolved. He understood everything in his life. It was like he did a life review and was able to get understanding, from an internal space, an understanding and a conversation explaining everything. This higher point of himself is explaining everything up until that day, so he could understand his whole life's path
In perspective.
exactly. And so it completely changed him. he
Well, now,
can't.
I have it happen a lot with astrology clients, and mine has to do with 70% of them. I got to find the blockage and at least get that blockage moved a little bit. Don't have to move it completely, but at least get it moving where they can feel that it's possible. And then all of a sudden they go, "Wow!" And they can look around that block and get excited. And I don't have to do anything then. They know where they're going. They're ready to go.
Right,
That's
right.
all.
It's, it's just getting out of that place of fear.
Yeah.
And we kind of live with, I did a little meta, I decided to go into the meta a little bit, and just to get a little bit of wisdom, for this group to share with you. And it was talking about blinders, and it is,
Mhm.
we do live with blinders. We have limitations that we put around ourselves, and to just be in that energy, to me, is a very real place of pure potential. And so then it just becomes, what is the potential? I call it like the low hanging fruit. What's the potential that I'm aligned with, to be able to latch onto and bring into form. So it's this process of going up into that space, but then it's also the process of bringing it down into the day-to-day experience, so that it does make a difference in your life. And so a lot of times, if it's a business, say I may be working with like the top 4 or 5 individuals in the company. So we're going in as a group, and an interesting thing happens where you're in this space as, like, let's say there's 6 people. You're in there as 6 souls. There's no fear. You're viewing yourself at this higher space. So you're viewing everybody else from that higher space. So beautiful things happen just in that experience alone. And if somebody has any shortcomings that they feel about themselves, those can get resolved very quickly. It's miraculous. So now we're in this space together, and we it's like just a clear view. I always say, if these 6 people would just come in a conference room normally, they're coming in with their educational level, their life experience, their belief systems, their emotions of how they feel about themselves or everybody else in the room. So we take that completely out of the equation, and we go into this higher space where none of that stuff exists. So it's not getting in the way.
I'm getting you now. Is this like, for example, I'm with you and I'm fearful, and for a while I'll put my fears in a shoebox. I'll put them in a shoebox here, and they'll be there when I come back. And I'm surrendering to you without my fears, and then you take me on a trip with my higher self that doesn't know that fear.
Right. But in the beautiful thing with this is that, again, it is a tool. So it's not just a,
Right.
one and done kind of experience. I worked with a group of, gosh, I think there were like 8 or 9 individuals with a new company. They were all in their 30s, all young. And we were, doing this over a series of days, and they got to the point where they realized, they were talking amongst themselves, like, we need to decide whatever, how the business is structured. And they started to articulate, okay, well, we're going to take that into the meta. So they were actually, saving topics to go into that higher space, to look at them from that wide open potentiality. And so to me, that's a new way of doing business. So it's not saying, okay, well, we need help with, let's get a consultant in here to help us with that. It's using source as your mentor. It's using source as your consultant and your higher selves. There's nothing greater than that.
Well,
So
go ahead.
it's just incredibly empowering. And to have those 6 individuals in that space seeing the same thing,
Mhm.
then everything changes on the day-to-day functions through the company.
You got a question here. It says, I've been in hundreds of conference room meetings. How do you take people into the metaspace and get them there?
Yeah, so that's the process of, it needs a couple days. And like I said, I call them trips in. The best way to describe it is, it's like, it's similar to a guided meditation, but we're all creating it together. And so this container is created that, usually when you meditate, it's a very singular experience. And if you listen to a guided meditation, you're listening to, I'm walking on a beach and I hear the sand, the waves. It's my experience. I'm not experiencing what, Erica is experiencing or Linda. It's my experience. But this process, we do it together. So whatever Linda's seeing or whatever Jan is feeling, we're all feeling. And so so we very much become, in a sense, one. So, and so that it's very contextual, and it becomes very, very real, and we're all in this space together.
What happens in the group as you enter that group? This question's from Deborah. What happens in that group when you close your eyes and you calm down, take a deep breath, that allows you to start shedding those oppressive, down-to-earth worries like the bottom line? What is it that happens that causes it to go away?
Yeah, so the way I understand it is, it's getting us closer to what I call fully realized divine earth, or the fully realized self. And that's just a difference in frequency. So as we raise in frequency, a higher frequency cannot hold on to fear. It can't hold on to human emotions. And everything becomes very neutral. So it's basically that process, and that's what is so profound about it. And it's actually easy. It's
What
not.
I think happens, and I may be wrong, is up until that time that you go into this trip, um, you don't realize how much you just keep battering yourself with, where's the money? Where's the money? Where's the money? Where's the clock? Where's the watch? Where's the watch? Where's the clock? And you know what I want to ask you about? It's really related. What do you do with? It's so common. People say, I really want to leave this job. I've been here 20 years and I really want to go do my thing, and I'm scared to death. Who's going to put the bread on the table? What do you do with them? I mean, that's the most common experience. What do you do with
Yeah.
that? What happens to that kind of person that you get them into your meditation?
Well, everything does change from that higher space. And so perceptions change. And so people's um, view on their own life changes. It's interesting that you bring that up. I don't deal with that a lot, because most of the people that I'm working with are have the impetus to do more, and to um, live from that higher space. But it's interesting that you bring that up, because Gina and I created an online course that's an introduction to this whole, the meta work that we do. And it's really grounded in science and has a lot of explanation and background to it. And we talk about this view of what work actually can be. It can actually be a place where we go to evolve. You figure, we spend over 100,000 hours of our life working. So the workspace is a space that we all agree on. It's something that everybody has agreed. Assume, we might not agree on religion, we might not agree on, belief systems, but we pretty much all agree in work. And it's this platform that we have that we can really change lives. And so if a workspace can be created where each individual is honored, and they are there because the mission of the company is also aligns with their personal mission, then it does away with all those concepts of, I hate this job, or how many more years before I retire?
Watching the clock. Right.
Exactly. It would end that, going home at 5 o'clock, and then, taking things out on our family, or
All the dread.
all of that. And so we really go into depth with that in our course. We call that the the holographic work culture, to actually create a work culture in which we're all contributing and in a very expansive state, rather than, we're evolving. Everything needs to evolve, and the workplace needs to evolve as well.
It makes total sense. Mark has a question for you. They're using this chat button at the bottom of the screen. How do you handle individuals within the group that are not sensitive to the energy of the group?
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, once everybody gets in that space, um, I've had people that are not meditators, or come in with some pretty rocky emotions, around a topic, and again, everything becomes very neutral in that higher space. So, and it's it, it
Less threatening?
oh yeah, absolutely. There's no. So let me describe fully realized divine earth, which is what this is getting closer to, is a space, a version of earth. It's a higher frequency where fear doesn't exist, where ego doesn't exist, where, at least in the way that we're used to it, and that everything is perfectly connected and fully realized. And so that's hard to describe, but once you experience it, it it changes everything. Yeah.
That's kind of like what Christ was saying, I would think, before you even ask, I know what you need.
Well, and yes, and I work with Christ consciousness. So
Sounds,
that's what,
very similar.
yeah.
You have a question for a couple from Erica. What happens to the person when they come out of that space? How does somebody know that they're in the space?
Yeah. Well, they definitely know that they're in it. We're talking, everybody's, going in together and describing it and feeling it. And when you do come out of it, anything that is like out of balance with you, like I've had individuals go in, and when they come out, like whatever was holding them back just immediately comes to the surface. And so it becomes whatever that individual needs. Maybe they need to journal, or they need some time alone, or they need to talk things out. But very quickly, those things that don't serve us come to the surface, because they don't exist up there, and it makes it harder for them to exist within us when we come back into this environment. But it does, again, everything we do every moment of the day is perception. I could witness a situation and have a completely different experience than somebody across the room. The same event happened, it's just my perception of it versus somebody else's perception of it. So to have just that higher perspective and connection with your higher self makes not only life richer, but things start to make more sense. And we begin to realize that we really are creators. We really do, manifest and create our reality. So you begin to care less about the little, nitty gritty things that we can't even change anyways, and begin to look at life as a creator, okay, there's a negative situation. What am I bringing to it? What can I learn from it? What do I really want to occur? It just makes life richer and deeper. And the other thing that happens is, the more you're in that space, the more synchronicities start to occur, because one of the part of the process that I do is I actually locate the person or the company on this earth. And then I also locate them on fully realized divine earth, which is not another earth. It's just a higher frequency. And when that connection happens, and I take the person through it, so they're experiencing it as well, it's like those frequencies. So kind of the mundane that we live in, and this higher, more refined energy gets closer together. And as that happens, synchronicities increase, doors open that had been closed. You begin to live more in the flow, and you know, manifesting what we need in order to not, manifesting like I want to know the winning numbers for, Thursday
Right.
night's lottery, but, those things that we need in life to fulfill us are flowing to us easier.
That makes good sense. Could you explain for us? I'm going to put those two pictures up that you had people draw when they were in that state with you. Then we'll get to Mark's next question after this. But I want to show the people these photographs you sent me, these drawings. Could you explain what you were going through with the people?
Yeah. Yeah. So what these are, when we're in that space together, um, we want to bring it into form, and we want to take that container of energy that we're in and we're experiencing it, and we want to bring it into physical form, because that helps bring it down into the day-to-day life. And I'm an artist, and so my natural method is to paint. So during the couple days that we're together, there'll be a large canvas on the wall, and if people are familiar with automatic writing, which is,
Right.
this is automatic painting. And so we're basically allowing the energy that we're experiencing together basically go into the pigment on the canvas. And so this, for example, was about 7 or 8 feet wide. It was very large, and you can tell that there's smaller rectangles, and those are smaller canvases. So there was a canvas piece that each person in that gathering got to leave with, because the painting, so we're channeling the energy into the pigment. So the energy of that higher space is now in the pigment. So when the painting's done, you can put your back to it and you can feel the energy coming through the painting. So the painting becomes almost like a portal to get you back into that higher state. So it makes it easier for you to get into that higher state of consciousness. And a lot of times, like I said, if there's numerous people, I'll have that many canvases and everybody can leave with a piece of it, so that they can utilize that when they're going back into the process, so that they can, just to support them to get back into that higher state of consciousness again. And I love it because, for my whole life, I've always heard, oh, I can't even draw a straight line. When it comes to art, we're kind of told when we're really young, you either are a good artist or you're not. And so just to have that playfulness and that freedom around the painting is really a big deal for a lot of people. And so
It makes a lot of sense because you get an image. Mark wants to know, how is this translated from the leadership team to the working staff?
yeah, so it's the place where those leaders can go and kind of brainstorm from that higher space, right? But then it's also something that the way they're going to interact with the staff completely changes. And a whole company can absolutely learn this process together. Mm-hmm. So it could be something that a whole company ends up doing, but it's to have that higher perspective, to be able to see why people are reacting the way they're reacting, or the reason that why anything's happening in a business structure, to be able to see it from that higher perspective provides the individuals with empathy that they may not have had, insight, guidance. So those leaders are reacting or acting coming from a higher space.
Is it possible with a business like that to have a result like a marriage sometimes, where the higher space tells them it's just over? We have done the work that we could do. I'm seeing that a lot more and more, less bitterness like the old days. A lot of people are separating because their work is done.
Right.
Now, usually there's a woman on the side or a guy on the side. But a lot of times we have related as much as we can. We've been straining lately. That doesn't work. And they start to see that it's just ending and it's more natural.
Right, right. It absolutely, it's because, endings aren't always bad or negative, they're just the next step that individuals or, parts of a company need to go on. So, but there's an understanding when it's coming from that higher space, so that, again, there could be more empathy around that and more
Makes a lot of
support.
it's always comes back to compassion, doesn't it? Well,
It
Erica is very interested in asking you, how would she leave such a group and be able to do this on her own?
Yeah, so for once I have the experience with a group, again, it's a tool. So you get everything that I have, and once you understand that, you can absolutely do it for yourself. It really truly is just a tool. And as I said, we're evolving, and so we have new capacities, and these are just the way the capacities are coming in for me. I think that so many people now are discovering different ways in order to go into these higher spaces. But it's actually a very simple process. And I've not officially started training people, but any time people have the experience, they have everything they need to go into that
Well, I was
space.
going to ask you that because things are changing so rapidly, and I know you have your coined phrases. You must be seeing this happen in other fields, the same drawing upon the source.
I really haven't. I've just been hearing from a lot of people that are looking for marketing that
Mm.
that wow, I can't believe that marketing can be handled from this perspective. Um, I mean, I hope it's happening in a lot of different fields. It needs to, and I say it often. That, I mean, this is marketing. Marketing in so many ways. You could have the perspective of the old way that I probably used to do marketing years ago was, marketing is manipulating people into buying a product or a service, right? It's getting a person to think, oh, I'm not cool because I got to get that to be cool or to be whatever. And so, it's a very manipulative field. And so this brings a higher degree of ethics to it, because you're only
That makes
doing,
sense. Yes,
so if I hopefully it's happening in many, many different fields.
more natural. Yeah,
Yes,
I could see what you're talking about. That makes a lot of sense because a lot of artists and a lot of people are just not comfortable with the continuing with the manipulating and uh, the kind of capitalism that we've had.
right. Exactly. This is holistic. This
You
is
see it like in Norway and Denmark, Scandinavian countries, more natural.
right. And I know that the next natural thing for me right now, I do this work if somebody potentially needs marketing from my company, but I view it as an avenue that I'm open to going down. Any two companies, that's having a conflict or having a need to get that closer connection between two companies, say, um, you know a corporation and another smaller company that they're working with. Anytime that there's humans relating,
Mhm.
this work can be done. So I've only been doing it in respect to marketing because that's what I do, but I can step into any arena and connect, because it's really soul work. It's really not, business work. It's
Sounds to
really
me like it's very,
soul.
it just becomes simpler and simpler.
Right, right. And it is so um it is just so simple. Like we human beings make things way harder than it needs to be, you know. It is just so much.
Pull her hair out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Eric is interested. Eric is interested in how this would compare with either muscle testing or self reflection.
Yeah, so you could use muscle testing, you know, within the process, but it's a full experience. So your all your senses are being activated. You're hearing, you're seeing, you're feeling. So it's literally like you're stepping into a higher version of yourself.
Makes sense.
So
Yeah.
so it has so it affects your whole body. It affects all of your cells.
That makes a lot of sense. Linda wanted to know what's the biggest aha moment you've had when you're working in a group that knocked your chair over?
Yeah, the biggest one I would have to say is when we interacted with individuals from the future.
Oh, really?
Yes, and we were able to talk with them, not just me on behalf of the client. The client was able to talk to individuals in their future, and they were able to ask them, "How did I show up for you? Why did you choose my company over another company? How
Really?
did I how did I change your life?" And they had a conversation.
Wow.
And what then this beautiful confirmation happened that about a week later, a man contacted my client, um and she said he was the guy that I talked to. So
Whew.
that was pretty profound, and that's when I, you know, I to me this is a real place. You know,
I told you not to start this company.
well, you know, like
I told you go belly up. Of
we communicate on a soul level with each other, whether we're
course
conscious
we
of
do.
it or not, right? So this is just becoming conscious of it. And when you become conscious of it, it becomes a superpower because you realize you can do it. And we only work with companies that are here to do good. You know, I would never have this experience
Yeah.
with a company that didn't have the integrity. But it really, to me, this is the way of the future. This is the way of interacting. This is a way of building business relationships, and, you know, always focused on the very highest and very
You think
best.
maybe you could go work in the White House for a while?
I actually, so when I'm in that space, I can see potentials, and I can see the
Oh
potentials for
boy.
the client or for myself or whoever. And that's a huge potential to be able to relate as human beings on that higher level, to be able to go in with another world leader and to put world leaders together and to be able to converse from that space.
Mhm.
Yeah, that would be a very profound.
How did the two things parallel this thing you're doing with the time you said that you dumped everything several years ago? That's a Pluto time when you dump everything. And astrologically, when you dump, the more you dump, the better off you are. I mean, it's a real clear message.
Yeah, I can relate to that because when I made the decision out of actually frustration that
Really?
yeah, I said, you know, I'm 50 years old. I want to be dealing with people and interacting with people that I don't have to worry about, or, you know, what are they really doing, or, you know, have any doubt about people. And I want to work with people that are here to do good. And that could sound, you know, naive or something, um but I made that choice, and things opened up. And then a couple years ago, I made the choice to get rid of everything I owned and get on the road. I didn't really
Well,
know
I
when.
can speak to you because I read for you 10 years ago and I read for you recently, and there's a difference. You are much lighter. There's a feeling of more certainty, peaceful, sure. And it wasn't like you were inundated with the world back then, but it was a feeling like you were struggling with stuff that you didn't want to struggle with.
Mhm.
Now you just seem to be so much freer than all that.
Yeah, I would say freedom is the word for sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that isn't that what we want in life, you
Well,
know?
yeah, and so how do we get everybody? And we're in some dark times now, especially this week. The planets are really hellacious this week. How do we get everybody who are, especially down in Australia? Look at what
Yeah.
they're going through. How do we get everybody who's so concerned about the climate and about politics, and how do we get them to start turning it around and to go to that space that's calmer, more peaceful, more assuring?
Yeah, well, maybe I need to do what you're going to be doing. Maybe I need to start putting a lot of it online and outlining it for people there. I did do some meta work. So the meta work is when I go in on behalf, and it's more like a reading. And so I can share that with you because it speaks a little bit to where we're at right now in the world. It's very short. Usually when I do this work, it could be, 8, 9, 10 pages, and this is just a short
Would it make sense to take
paragraph.
us into that field right now and look at the future of our show, like where the show's going the next couple of years?
Yeah, so we can't just jump right in and do it. Would be a process. That's why it takes a couple days.
I see.
Yeah, so we, maybe when you talk to me in a couple years, that can be but everybody's coming in at a different level, so it takes a few times. It takes some time before we're kind of all in that container together and experiencing the same thing together. I wish it could be that quick, but I can share with you the words that came through
Yes.
and see what we take from that. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, let's see. Again, it's not very long. Humanity is at a tipping point of realization that there is a larger responsibility than mere existence. It is if the blindfold has been removed and we are able to see more clearly what we are doing to ourselves, each other, and the earth. The whole point of being alive is to expand one's soul within this existence. It is if we are gathering puzzle pieces and building a grand and beautiful vision. And now, in this time, we're at the point of looking at the mess of pieces that are strewn about. We're beginning to truly see our environment and all of its attributes. It's a mess, and now we need to make sense of it. Life has been a constant changing view of distortion. The blinders of control and lessening of connection has resulted in a bit of an unconscious mess that we've created. In all its complexity of being human, we're in the early stages of a fuller realization of our own capacities, while at the same time evolving into new abilities of a higher caliber. Life can seem to be a mess. Truth be told, it's been a mess for a long time. That is only one way to look at evolution, from the messiness, what we haven't been. But the beauty of blinders being removed is the ability to see. And with the ability to see, we can choose differently. It is as if humankind was put under a spell to not see our full power, our true abilities. With evolution comes responsibility. The greater the evolution, the greater the responsibility. And we will not get there by blaming each other. We will not get there by being two sides. We will only get there when we can look into the eyes of the person to either side of us and see ourselves. When we can do that, we stand a chance. Neutrality is what is required now, plain and simple. Judgment aside, and becoming neutral is the course corrector. How we get there is up to us to navigate individually. Love is the answer. How we allow that is up to each of us individually as well. So that was just a little bit that came through earlier today.
Well, whatever radio station that was the right one. And that was preempted by Karen, who had answered the question with love and compassion. I really don't see much use in going any further. We got it on. You got it vibrating at the perfect level right now. So I want to just take the chance to thank you for coming on. It was just perfect. I think that in our own words, in our own perceptions, we can see where you're coming from. Is wonderful to see because the businesses need to change their perceptions so that when people go to work, they don't have to go to work with dread on their face. They can be happy to go to work, happy to return home from work to their family. We can start spreading more joy and caring amongst ourselves. But I want to take this chance for all of us to thank you, Lee Ann, for coming on for part 2. We'll get you on for part 3 sometime. Again, your website is?
So yes, the website is creativeonemarketing.com, and perhaps even more important, our online course that really dives into this a lot deeper, both from a personal perspective and a business perspective, is theinnercourse.net.
Innercourse.net.
The intercourse.
The
Yes.
intercourse?
Inner course.
Okay.
Yeah.
.net.
Maybe
Yeah,
we can.
Karen,
Yeah.
Karen she's waving her finger badly here. Karen, go ahead.
I just wanted to share that I have been really deep diving into a whole lot of new things that are happening in the healthcare arena. And I doubt that Leon, you would be aware of it. It's nothing in the same realm of what you're doing, except they're really working on vibration and healing.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing a phenomenal amount in sound healing and in going into a more meditative state. And I just felt like you, since you're doing this in your arena, I wanted you to know that it's being pursued in alternative health arenas.
That's wonderful.
That's wonderful. Yes. Thanks.
Well, whenever you talk to people, just tell them all you've been unplugged. And they're going to say, what the hell does that mean? I'm going to get a T-shirt someday that says, I have been unplugged. And just going to tell them, I used to be plugged in. Now I'm unplugged. There's less static now.
Okay, Rick, I'll design that for you. Okay.
Oh, that's great.
There you go.
Yeah, that flowed perfectly. I want to work
And
with
I put the link to the intercourse.net. I put that in the chat for people that are interested. So.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And thank you, people, for tuning in, our YouTubers. We'll see you next week, which is the review of the 10 things, the 10 transits that got us here to 2008 to 2010 to 2020, and what's upon us now, what's coming the next few years. We did it once a month ago. We're going to do it again because it didn't record. We're going to record that, and then the 10 weeks will start counting off one by one. I will start to teach beginning astrology. Come in and sit down. There's no prerequisite. I do think you should read this book completely through before you get started, and the whole book, not just your sign.
Yeah.
And then I'll have another book to recommend for your general astrology, but we'll be able to go through all 10 weeks and learn the aspects and the planets and the signs. Once again, we thank Lee Ann Fortunato-Heltzel for being with us. Thank y'all. Love y'all. See you all very soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.